Welcome to Miscellaneous Guys podcast number 6. Yeah, we made it. Woo!
Yeah.
All right, guys. With us today we have DJ,
Hey, how you doing?
doing pretty good, and Joshua.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Him. All right, and I'm AJ, your unworthy host. We do not have Joe or Andrew with us this week, but we hope to have them back at some point. This week we will be talking about the games we've been playing. We will be talking about the new 4K Switch. Maybe mention some of the Nintendo Direct stuff. We will be talking about Halo and someone rejoining the team. And if there's time, we might be talking about rumors about what's happening next. If there's time.
All right.
All right, Joshua, why don't you get us started on what have you been playing?
Sure. Well, this week I've been playing because I had the itch for some Mass Effect after last week's discussion about RPGs. I was like, let me check to see if Mass Effect is an RPG game per DJ's definition. So I started a new file. I was creating my character, choosing his backstory, what kind of character was he going to be, a soldier, adept, things of that nature, like the skill sets basically. I went with the adept, although I had a very difficult time choosing between that and the soldier because I kind of wanted to be a tank. As you guys know, I kind of play that style. I'm not really a finesse type of guy or anything like that. I tried to be. I tried to be, but I end up really just playing like a tank. But I wanted to go into that side of, you know what, let me just try to see what kind of powers I can throw at these characters. I was looking at some character builds on Google and seeing how I can best use and utilize the skills of this particular class set. And so far, I mean, I'm in the beginnings and I'm like an hour into the game. There's a lot of dialogue stuff, so not a lot of combat other than the opening stuff. So that's where I'm at. I've unlocked some skill points in my throw feature. So that's basically what the adept, from what I was reading, is that you want to be able, you can basically throw these characters off screen and it's like an insta kill once you've mastered that kind of, at least that skill set. So that's what I'm going to be running. There is a game plus at the end. So what I'm going to do and see, because I also have Mass Effect 2 on the go, like ready to go once I'm done with part 1, because I wanted to play the trilogy, is do the adept, start a game plus, and then do play as a soldier or unlock the skills of a soldier. And I don't know that I can or cannot. I really don't know. It's been a long time since I played Mass Effect, Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3. So that's where I'm at. And so far, so good. I'm playing normal in the difficulty of normal. I don't want to go too crazy and play insane mode or anything like that, just to familiarize myself with the combat and everything, because like I said, it's been a long time since I played the game. Once I'm done with the game, then I can possibly up the difficulty and give myself a little bit more of a challenge. Realistically, probably not. I'll just probably play it normal and continue that way. But so far so good. The game is fun. It's making me think how the lore or is in this game. If I remember certain things like researching these creatures that are part of the Citadel. They're called the Keepers, and if kind of remember vaguely that they're important to the end game.
Oh, no spoilers.
Oh, okay, sorry. So I'll just leave it at that then. But from what DJ was saying, that your interactions with these non-specific characters has an importance. So to me, it is an RPG, because if I don't interact with this particular thing, then or correct me if I'm wrong, DJ, but isn't that what you said? If you don't interact with an NPC, they won't go anywhere, and therefore it's not an RPG. So if I do interact with it,
basically my point was that if you an RPG is a game where the character that you play interacts with the world and the interactions change things about the character, whether it's the character development or things like that, the overall story, and other characters, whether they're companions or just random NPCs. But you affect the world in some of those ways. And yeah, Mass Effect, that definitely happens.
Right. So per your definition, it would fall as a RPG, and that's when I was like kind of remembering from when I was interacting with these other NPCs, basically. So to
So
me,
that's a good it's a good conclusion. You've concluded that it's an RPG, and DJ agrees with you. But let me ask you this, because I'm a guy that I was never able to get into Mass Effect,
mhm.
and I think it's because at that time I had just more or less gotten married, I think, and just had far less time for games. So when I tried it, the amount of dedication I think I needed to put into it was just too much. What makes it fun for you and worth it to invest that much time in that game?
I think the reason why for me it has like an emotional attachment to it. How I was introduced to the game was my very good friend, one of my best friends actually, my best man at my wedding. He was playing it in the barracks, and I went over to his room, and he was playing this game, Mass Effect. I was like, "Oh, what is this?" And just watching him play, I was like, "Oh, this looks pretty cool." It kind of gave me that Storm or oh my god, what's that movie called? Starship Troopers feel to it, where it's kind of like armory type of thing, exoskeleton with the exosuit that you kind of wear when you're on different planets and stuff.
Armory? Sorry, you said
No,
what? Armory? What?
yeah.
Armor? Armor?
so so that kind of gives me that nostalgia feeling of it. But more when I got into it when back in 2007 when I was playing it, it was really fun, man. Like the aspects of it being, for one, it's the creators of Knights of the Old Republic, Knights of the Old Republic 2. So it had that same feel to it where these decisions that I make, whether it be, light side, dark side type of thing, kind of affected my character and his outlook, right? So that really intrigued me because it did matter. The choices that I made mattered in the game, which is which was really cool, and I love that. Um, so you can be as good as you want or as bad as you want, and it has consequences, lasting consequences throughout the series. So it's interesting to me at least, and that's what made it fun for me. And I enjoyed it a lot. The combat is not so great in regard if you compare it to number two and number three. And I just think it's because it was the first of its kind in the
Definitely.
series that it feels that way. So a lot of people who've played two and three and never played one, when they jump into one, they kind of say, "Oh, it feels clunky and stuff like that." And yeah, that's a fair point. But honestly, you have to give it credit for what it was back when it was first released. So I mean, it is what it is. Once you get past that, I think a lot of people would enjoy it, and I honestly recommend it to anyone who hasn't played it to pick it up and play it. I know that I've have been recommended other games to play that I haven't played yet, but based off of the recommendation, I am going to jump into it. Like everyone's been recommending me play Alan Wake, and I will get it. I will get to it because a certain someone isn't coming this holiday season. I'll have more time to play Alan Wake.
I'll agree with you about Mass Effect and other games like that, in the sense that they were really good. It came out, and then like years later, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go back and replay that game, and it's just like, wow, this game doesn't. I don't. I mean, like, because like you said, the mechanics have been refined over the years. After playing two and three, then you go back and play one. It was the same thing with Assassin's Creed. I tried a few years ago. I tried to replay the first Assassin's Creed, and it was so difficult because the gameplay compared to modern day games is so bad. But at the time, it was like, oh, this is great. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that's how I feel about replaying the actual Resident Evil 2 like well, my expectation is that it'll play like a modern game because it was just so like in so great. It's still intense and it's still scary, but it's just like I can no longer tolerate sort of moving having to move the joystick a way where it's like it's counterintuitive to me.
Are you talking about the original?
Yeah,
Oh, okay, got it.
not the
Yeah,
remake, but you know the
the original.
exactly. So, yeah, I totally get that. Like game mechanics, when you go back to them, sometimes you're just like, this is sticky, or this is like, I don't. This is not the way I remember it working, or you thought it was like so smooth back then, and then you go back and you're like, like it's like I'm moving like glue, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I play a lot of Gears 4. So like I've played so much Gears 4. Any changes to how it feels, it sort of has a big impact on me. And I know that when I went to Gears 5, I did not like the way they changed the mechanics and the motion and the speed of which you can sort of move around. Um, and then I started to replay Gears, the first one, and even sort of like the fact that you can't mark people, for example. Like I know that when we first tried to play Gears, you and I were, I think you were completely lost, and I'm like, they're on the left. Where on the left? Over
Mm-hmm.
there. And I'm trying to mark them, and it's like, oh yeah, I can't mark them. You know,
Right.
like there's certain things that you sort of get used to and spoiled with, and as you go back, sometimes it can be a little bit clunky. But I'm glad that at least the story and the role playing aspects of the game for Mass Effect are still pretty tight. It sounds like.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And then what I was thinking too as I was playing, I was like, God, I really wish that they remake this game, or at least give it an HD, high definition or definitive edition update for next gen consoles or whatever. I know it's kind of early. I mean, Mass Effect One came out in 2007, but to me, I love this game so much that I really do hope that it gets remastered or remade some way where you're playing as Shepard again and not Andromeda, because Andromeda was such a letdown, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah, you've mentioned that before. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, so I would say that if I had any games wishes or if I had a meeting with games God, I would not ask for remakes. I'd ask for new things. But
Right.
that's just me. Um, so do you have you been playing any other games, or has that sort of been your focus?
No, that's just my focus now. It's kind of been a pretty busy week, so Mass Effect
And yeah,
has
plus
been it
sometimes
so
you get
far.
comfortable and in a groove, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Cool, cool. So DJ, what games have you been playing?
This week has been like hopefully the end of me working all this extra time and stuff, but because of that I really didn't have a chance to get into Sekiro because that's one of those games that I really want to be focused. So I've been playing Red Dead Redemption online because it's one of those games where I've said it before. You can kind of take it easy in that game. You can have a little bit of fun without being like really white knuckle focus, super hardcore. It's just like, hey, I'm gonna go hunting, or maybe I'll do a couple bounties or something. So yeah, I've been just that's kind of like my relaxed game. It doesn't take a super lot of skill.
I it's funny you say that. I don't think I have a relaxed game anymore. Most of the games that I play are sort of fairly intense. So like I play a lot of Gears 4. I've mentioned that maybe 100 times here. I was playing before we even got on this podcast, and I was like, in a sense, it's like I relax by getting intense with the game. Like okay, I'm in it. I'm in, it's intense. Then the harder, like the more intense it becomes, the more relaxed I feel about how the game is playing. Because I love like fighting for the hill. I love fighting for like the last kill. I love being the last person being chased by two or three other whether they're gears or whether they're you know on the other side or what have you. It's just like, man, I love that chase and that thrill, which is probably why I've been playing a lot of Warzone lately, where I started playing that. Uh, I don't know, roughly late last week, and this week I started it in earnest. And I started, I played with Ye Ye yesterday, as a matter of fact, as well as Rudy and Chris. So we had a full squad of four. I think that's a full squad, but we had four on the squad, and we were playing Warzone. So we're pretty new to the map. I'd say that right now we pretty much suck, but give us a few more playthroughs, and I think we'll really be rocking and rolling because we're starting to like back each other up. We're starting to like really know the map. We're starting to learn where people are coming from, where they're shooting from. If you haven't started in this game and you're interested at all, avoid open like fields like the play because there's always somebody just waiting for you to try to cross that field, and it's rough, man. And
Knowing
just
me, I'd probably run head first and be like, "Yeah, oh, I died."
get some. Oh, somebody save me! You know that. I mean, I know you don't play a lot of these types of games, but one of the fun parts is like when your teammate is down, the opportunity to save them. As you're fighting off others can be really intense and really cool because there it feels like a firefight. You're like, okay, I'm getting shot from the left, I'm getting shot from the right. If I duck in just the right way, I might be able to pick this foo up. It's like,
Mhm.
how do you do that? Oh well, like it only takes a few seconds to pick them up, but it can feel intense during those few seconds as you're taking fire and trying to fight people off. And they're of course gonna like approach you really hard. They're gonna try to flank you or what have you, and that can be you can lay down fire if another one of your teammates is up. You can lay down fire, but they're still trying to push hard so that they can overwhelm you too. One game yesterday I was playing with Rudy, in which he was the last surviving member, and it's just me, Ye, and Chris, and we're just sort of cheering him on, and we're cheering him on, knowing that the situation is hopeless because he's outnumbered 4-1. Plus, he's trapped in like a silo where there are no exits except to go directly into them. So he's in there. They're throwing fire at him. They're throwing grenades at him. They're laying down suppressive fire. They're laying down fire to the left, fire to the right. So if he even peeks, it's like he's taking fire and taking shots, and it's like, and all he has is a gun left, and it's like, okay, well, what do I do? And he sticks his head out, tries to aim. He gets a few shots off, but like right after that, he's dead, and it's like we're all cheering, like, hey! It's like you have no chance.
Mhm.
Woo! So even that part can be fun. Like like I think people focus too much on winning and or performing well, but it can be fun to lose, and then when you're playing with other teammates, for actual friends who are kind of with you and understand like the difficulty of the game. And that part is fun. At least for us, it is. It's not fun losing, but it is fun sort of losing in a classy and funny style. Chris was did one of those things where it's like he was the last man standing, and Chris is one of those guys that's like he doesn't really have any faith in his skills, so it's like, oh, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna jump into the grenade because I don't want to live without you. So he blows himself up, and then we start the next game, and that's the fun part because you can always start the next game, and the next game will be equally as fun. So I've been playing a lot of Warzone and just started getting into it in the last few days. I'd say that I do recommend it. It's funny that I was telling Chris and I was telling Rudy before Ye joined us that the game feels like what PUBG was supposed to be, at some point, because it actually plays smooth. There are no real glitches, and firing seems fairly intuitive and accurate when you want it to be. Um, so yeah, it's like if you played PUBG and you gave up on battle royale games, this one works, and this one is fun, and it's a big map, and there's a new map that just came out, and new modes that just came out, so it's a good time to get in if you want to try it or play. And if you happen to be a friend and you want to join us. It's very cool, a lot of fun.
Yeah, you make it
Oh
sound
yeah.
very interesting. Like I'm not a big battle royale type of guy, but I love playing with my friends. So yeah, I'll jump into that. I really couldn't get into Apex just because I felt like I didn't get the mechanics or the particular characters that you had to select to be, based off of their skills or whatever.
Yeah.
But if this is anything like PUBG, where it's just like just pick up shit and shoot, or like Call of Duty regular multiplayer is, then yeah, I don't see why I can't just jump in and play. The last Call of Duty that I was really into was actually Black Ops, and I can't remember if it was Black Ops 1 or Black Ops 2, where it was like you're on a yacht or whatever. That was like one of the maps, and I
I
was
think it's
playing it.
Yeah,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
I'm sorry. I was gonna say I actually was playing it on the Wii U. I had it on the Wii U, and I had a lot of fun. I was surprised at how much fun I had playing Call of Duty multiplayer because Call of Duty is one of those type of games. At least when Modern Warfare 2 and 3 were out, I mostly just played it for the single story, type of thing. My friends would play multiplayer, but I really wasn't into that type of stuff. But you make this Warzone seem a lot of fun, and I'll start downloading it on the Xbox because I know that's where you guys play mostly.
Yeah, for
So
sure. I mean, just I think Chris and I and we all do. We all suck. And you just got to get used to you. The problem with you, of course, is that we've joked about it. It's that you tend to have an attitude of like 10 minutes in, if I'm not good at it, I kind of want to give up. It's like
yeah,
so you got to give it a chance. And I know like right now I suck, and but even sucking in a right way can be so much fun. And there are modes in there that if you play like I play with Rudy a lot. Sometimes Chris isn't there, and it's like there are three-player. There's a trios mode, which just moves so fast, and the object of the game is essentially to kill as many people as you can without being killed. You will be overwhelmed. You're not going to live very long. Your guns are going to suck, but at least you'll have an opportunity to like level up the guns, and then once you level up the guns, you'll start to shoot better. you know but you can land, like you land multiple times. You don't have It's not just a it's a battle royale in the game in the sense of like there's a circle and the circle closes, but outside of that, you get multiple lives and multiple opportunities to like kill some fools, and that can be real fun. And doing with your mates, like that's just so cool. And the game has a thing where like you'll have they'll crown players that are doing super well in the game, and those players are worth extra points. I'm not a fan of the mechanic exactly, but I like the idea of like, hey, this person is worth more. I don't know if I think they're worth like as much more as they make them out to be, because then people will sort of just go for those guys instead of going for the get regular game. But dude, it is a lot of fun. You drop fast, and then you're in and out, and it doesn't matter that you're out so fast because you're gonna drop right back in.
oh, that sounds cool. I'm really gonna play this guys with you guys. So I'm actually
Cool.
downloading it now.
Yeah, you know what? For the first time yesterday, as a matter of fact, like I go to sleep fairly early because I wake up pretty damn early and everything. So, but for the first time yesterday, I played until like I haven't played past 10 o'clock in a long time. And dude, I played until 11. I was like, this game is too good. Like I just wanted more. And then of course playing with Ye, because once Ye gets warmed up, it can be a lot of fun to have him playing first person shooter and sort of rescuing you. So it's like, yeah, dude, I just the game, like I know I resisted this game for a long time because Warzone is free, and you can get it uh, for free right now. But I resisted the game for a really long time, primarily because I was like, another battle royale game, and sort of looks like PUBG, and I'm just like, I've had enough of PUBG. But I think it's better, it's fun, and it's got good shooting mechanics. It is a little bit of a like sort of Twitch shooter. First one to Twitch and aim right gets the win. But outside of that, like it's a lot of fun. So recommend it.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah, and it's in 4K, by the way, so you can play it in like 4K 60, I believe.
Oh wow, wow, cool. Oh, you know what, guys? Speaking of 4K, so apparently there's a rumor there's a new Switch coming
I'm
out.
sorry, dude. I gotta interrupt you here because your mic went low. Hello?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, now I can.
Yeah, that's much better.
Much better. Okay, cool. No, what I was saying is that there's a rumor actually that there's a
You
new
faded
Switch coming
again,
out.
dude. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Let's pause for a second here, and we'll give like I don't know. Is the mic further away from your mouth or something?
No, I have it up to my mouth now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry to keep interrupting you. I just want to make sure we can actually hear you.
Right. No, no worries. I appreciate it. Well, hey guys. Well, apparently there's something that's also coming out next year that's also 4K. there's a rumor that the new Nintendo Switch, kind of think of Switch Pro, is actually going to be 4K, and the rumor again is that a lot of games are going to be coming out next year, early next year, to support its launch. The power specs, it says it's 4K and it'll be playing 120 frame rates per second. So that's the apparent rumor that's out there for the Nintendo, which is kind of cool. But I don't know that I'll get it. I know that I will eventually, but just I'm not gonna get it right off the bat or anything like that. But if I can play like the rumored games that are coming out with it, Mario Galaxy in HD or 4K, I should say, that will be freaking beautiful to see. And I just wanted to get you guys' thoughts. Would a 4K Nintendo Switch get you guys to jump in and buy it or purchase it?
For me, like I've said it many times, 4K really isn't one of those things that really is like, oh, that's what you have to have. To me, it's just like whatever. It's 4K. It's it doesn't interest me. But the fact that they're saying 120 frames per second, that actually interests me more because that means smooth gameplay. No stuttering, no hiccups in the video, or back in the era of CDs, no skipping. As a metaphor. But anyway, so that sounds interesting. But 4K, I could care less. I haven't bought a Switch yet, so maybe I'll get one now that they're updating the hardware. It seems, but I don't know.
Yeah, I personally like. I know it's a fairly solid rumor, and I'm just curious to see how they're gonna do that 4K. Like, what it to me like 4K. If you have Minecraft and you're touting like, hey, 4K Minecraft, dude, you can do 4K Minecraft on like a calculator, you know. So like, I'm not really sure
Yeah.
what 4K is sort of. It can be so meaningless and superfluous overall. Like, it doesn't have any merit a lot of the time. So I don't know exactly what they mean by that. But if it's real 4K and if it's running at 120 frames per second, they're talking about a massive jump in power from the Switch into what you have now. Like, the Switch, in a sense, is like, to me it's like it's not that it's massively underpowered. It's just it's it's a toy as compared to it's sort of the way consoles have traditionally
It's a
compared to
handheld.
PCs. So it's like, okay, PC compared to console compared to, like, Switch, Nintendo Switch or whatever. Nintendo has never really gone after the hardware. They've always been about the games. They've always been about the play. And so I'm surprised that's what they're looking at. I wonder how they're gonna pull it off, or especially for sort of like the format of Switch. Like, is this thing gonna be massively bigger? How are they gonna, or are they gonna try to stick with the same like size and sort of like the Switch premise, which is essentially making it from handheld to, like, actual console. I don't know. Like, that seems hard. I'd be impressed if they did. And like DJ, I don't really care about the 4K, but I am interested in the 120 frames per second. That would be cool.
Well, I mean, from what the stockholders meetings have mentioned before, I guess their business plan isn't to make it any different. It's going to be the same concept where this Switch is going to be docked and portable like it is now. And that's, I guess, the intrigue of it all is just that, hey, I'm playing this game on my TV, but I want to go sit on the toilet for a little bit because I got to go. Let me just take it off the dock and sit on the toilet for like an hour playing this game. And that's the beauty of what it is. You switch from TV to portable mode, and it's on the go. You play it wherever you want, really. And
Right.
just the fact that it's, I mean, yeah, like you guys said, the 4K isn't like the most impressive power behind it. It's more about the frame rates per second. But I think the reason why Nintendo's doing that is just so more to bring more third-party games to its console. For example, like Madden, and not that anyone would care about Madden, but it's a game that's not come to the Nintendo line since I want to say the Nintendo Wii. And then FIFA has released their games on the Switch, but not like the full version that you would get on the PlayStation or on the Xbox consoles or even on PC. There's like certain modes that you can't play on FIFA that you can on the other console games that you can't play on Switch. So I think that's the reason why they're doing it. They're more, I think they're marketing it more towards the third party developers to say, hey, look, if you guys were talking about power before and you couldn't bring your games to us because of that, now we have a console that can do that. So what's your excuse to tell us no, you don't want to bring our game to the Switch? Because you can't really deny the selling power that the Switch is just based on the number of consoles that they've sold. And if you give me a quick minute, I can pull up the numbers to see how many consoles the Switch has sold. But I believe if
A
recently
lot.
they've said that they've surpassed the original Nintendo console. And again, I'll in a minute I'll look at the numbers to see where it's actually at. But that's pretty impressive. And in its lifetime, projected, it's going to outsell the Wii, which was a very popular game, and that sold 116 units, if I'm not mistaken.
116?
116 million. I'm sorry,
Because I
units.
was like, that's not that impressive.
Yeah, right. But 116 million. I'm sorry, 116,000. No, I'm sorry, 116 million consoles.
I know. I know for me, handhelds have always been something that's interested me because, I mean, for example, I got the PSP, which I really enjoyed. I got the PS Vita, which it felt like it should have been really good, but then for whatever reason, Sony just stopped caring about it. But one of the things that make handhelds hard is because everybody nowadays, especially with games, they always want you to be online. They always want you to be connected, and that kind of defeats the purpose of a handheld for me at least. I work on a base, so internet signal, because it's an air base, is really spotty at times. But we sometimes have really slow days, so being able to whip out my handheld gaming thing would be great. I travel a lot because of my job, but that means I'm quite often in hotels that either don't have Wi-Fi or have really shitty Wi-Fi, or I'm just in the middle of nowhere. And having that handheld is great, but again, I need to be able to play my games without worrying about internet, and that's one reason I haven't bought a new handheld in a long time. I don't know if the Switch has that issue, but this has kept me away from them.
Yeah,
Right. Well, sorry.
go
Go
ahead,
ahead, AJ.
No, go ahead.
Oh, no, what I was going to say, DJ, is that in regards to connectivity, I mean, yes, if you don't have internet access on base, then obviously you can't play your online games and stuff like that. But for example, it has an app where you can download, well, you'll download this app. It's called the Nintendo Online or the Super Nintendo Online. And as long as you've logged in to that app in a week, where you do have internet access to make sure that you have Nintendo Online, you can play these games offline anywhere. If you're not at home where there is Wi-Fi, so for you on base where you don't have internet connectivity, you can still play these games offline. It does have obviously these games are on a cartridge, so you don't have to worry about it being disk based or anything like that.
Yeah.
So the install is nothing because again the everything is stored onto the actual cartridge itself. So I don't know if that answers your
Yeah,
question, but
It
going back to the units shipped in regards to the Nintendo Switch, it's to as of June 30th, units shipped is 61.44 million.
damn.
yeah. If they release a new 4K Switch, I'm not sure that they'll actually beat the projections of 116 million, because it seems like they'll be competing with themselves at some point.
No,
Well, I think it wouldn't be competing with itself. It's just like it's still within the same lifeline. It's still the Switch. It's not a new console
yeah.
per se. It's kind of like the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 4 Pro.
Base
So it'll just add to those numbers that's already sold.
Yeah, and basically it's going to be either people who are willing to buy it because they want the newer hardware or the 4K, or people that haven't bought it yet thinking, okay, now maybe I'll get one. They're putting out this higher end stuff, maybe I'll get one. But a lot of people already have one and are probably not going to buy a new one.
And it's like I said, I think what I would do if the rumors are true is eventually I would trade in the one that I have towards it to get the new and improved powerful Switch 4 Pro K whatever whatever they end up calling it this thing. So I'm really excited for it, and more so in regards to the rumors of the games coming to this potential launch for the new Switch Pro console, right? So we have already known since last year's E3 that the sequel to Breath of the Wild is coming. We don't know when. There was a Nintendo Direct actually this week that showcased some games that are coming out for the Switch this year that I don't even want to mention because it was so not memorable to put it nicely.
Wait, for the
So
Breath
So
of the Wild trailer?
no, not that trailer, but
Oh,
just like the games that they were showing on the Nintendo Mini
oh,
Direct.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
nothing that I want to even bother talking about because that's how boring and bored I was. So I mean, the only cool trailer that I saw was probably World of Tanks, just because it reminded me of how much Joseph likes that game. So I was like, oh, cool, a game I could possibly play with Joe if ever gets the Switch. Because I don't know if it's crossplay or anything like that. They didn't really mention that. But anywho, the rumored games that's coming out is Breath of the Wild 2 was allegedly supposed to come out late this year, but now they're going to push it back to 2021 to launch it with the new Switch Pro. Also, rumor has it that the Mario Anniversary, kind of like a collection of games, where it's Mario 64 HD, Mario Galaxy, Mario Sunshine, are actually HD remakes, and they're pushing it to 2021 around the months following or the month that the new Switch Pro 4K comes out. So they'll have a slew of games coming out in 2021 to kind of support the launch of the new Switch, and it'll be like, oh guys, guess what? You want to play Breath of the Wild in beautiful 4K, 120 frames per second? You may want to pick up the more powerful Switch now. So that's kind of intriguing. And again, it's not more for the sense of the 4K, just because when you play, for example, Breath of the Wild now, I believe it's like 1080p. It looks gorgeous already on my 4K TV, but it'll look, I think, even so more impressive once you put it on that more powerful Switch. In more beautiful aspect would be the 120 frame rates per second.
yeah, I if we had if we did a drinking game based on how often we said 4K over that time, I bet people would be dead at this point. uh, so that's good news for Nintendo if they can bring out a new version. I guess Switch 2.0. That'd be pretty
Right.
good. They'd be
Yeah,
going that
whatever they call it.
exactly right. Um, so we'll wait to hear confirmation about that soon, hopefully. Um, so speaking of confirmation, it looks like it's been confirmed that Joseph Staten is being brought back to help out with Halo. And why don't you tell us a little bit about what that means, Joshua?
Sure. So Joseph Staten, or Andrew, who's I would say I would consider Andrew our Halo expert along with Yeye. But in regards to Joseph Staten, he's basically the father of the lore of Halo. And how did Andrew put this? Let me just take a quick look here.
He's the
Uh,
godfather of Halo.
yes, the father of Halo. Yeah, I like that pun. And Destiny lore, the first Destiny 1 lore. I'm not sure if it's also Destiny 2,
There
but for
is no
sure
lore
the
in
Halo.
Destiny.
Well, per
There's lore
that
about Destiny.
that's debatable and I'm speaking for Andrew here, where he would tell you that's debatable because there is lore in Destiny,
Yeah,
and I
more lore
believe
than
that
game.
Sam.
It would be
Mhm.
debatable if he were here.
Right,
But
but he's
he's
not, which is okay.
Destiny
I think
actually,
yeah. maybe DJ could make a good case.
I would just say Destiny is that weird situation where there just might be more lore than there is actual game.
I I I remember when I first started playing the first game, and I got into it because Joshua basically insisted, to the point of Joshua insisted to the point of saying, "No, here, take it, go play." And I was like, "Okay." He was like, "I
Yeah.
want to play with you, and that's it. You got to play with me." So he insisted, and I started playing with it. And I really quickly found out that I remember the experience was do this, do that, go here, go there, and all that lore that was supposedly there was like, okay, read
Well,
this
that's my
story that's in
point.
a book that you could read online, maybe.
Well, that's
And
my
I was like,
point.
that's
There's lore. There's tons of lore. There's just not a whole lot of game to express that lore. If you understand
that's
what I'm
but
saying.
yeah, but that's sort of saying the same thing that I'm saying, but like the other way around. Like you're flipping the coin. Like it's the two sides of the coin. The coin is the lore exists perhaps, but it's just not in the
But you keep
game
saying
because there isn't.
perhaps. The lore does exist whether it's in the game or not. The lore is there. It's like Halo. You
Well,
have all the
what I
games,
mean by
but then you have the
let me explain.
comic books and okay.
Yeah, let me explain. So what I mean by perhaps is that, like, to me, lore doesn't exist. A game's lore doesn't exist if it's not inside of the game, right? If it's not inside of the game and I have to read the lore in some sort of in a comic book or in a book, that lore doesn't exist to me in the game. And so that's what I mean by perhaps. It's not that I'm saying that there is no
Hmm.
lore for Destiny. There's Destiny lore galore, right? Like
Yeah.
there's lots of it to be had if you're willing to go out there and look for it. But as far as actually experiencing any of that lore
Well,
inside of the game, very little of it like is actually experienced. A lot of it is alluded to, but never really experienced, and most of it is not in game. You know,
I guess that means it comes down to your definition of lore because usually when I think of lore, it's the history or the stuff that happened on the side. Like take World of Warcraft. There's a huge story there, but that's the story you experience. That's the narrative. The lore is like what the dragons were doing thousands of years before trolls and elves even came up. The lore is what was happening on I can't remember the name of the other planet before the orcs were turned into green orcs. The lore is like the outside of the story. Then the story of the game is a history. Destiny lacked uh, storytelling and it lacked narrative, but it had tons of lore. And that's I mean like I said, I guess it just depends on what your definition of lore is.
yeah, that's totally fair actually to say that. What I would say is that, so have you ever read a book that has been made into a movie and then watched that movie?
Yeah.
Okay, so the difference between the book and the movie can be drastic at times,
Oh yeah.
but like to me, I consider them two separate forms of media, and beyond that, I consider them essentially two separate pieces based on something that it's sort of like different species in a sense. Like they may have a common ancestor, but they're separated at this point. And once it's separated, like if the lore that's in the book didn't make it to the movie, as far as the movie is concerned, that's what I mean. Like as far as the movie is concerned, it does that lore doesn't exist to me within the world of the movie. It might exist within the world of the book. It might exist, let's say, within let's say there are some that have been that are comic books that have been turned into books that have been turned into movies. It's like, okay, a book might have more lore than the comic books, but if the book doesn't like if the book is separate, the book will have its own set of history and lore that exists, that, let's say, comic books, because they can span years and years and decades even, like that lore is not in there. So saying, like, let's say Man of Steel is its own film, like, you can't I wouldn't say that the lore of Superman, the first movie, Superman the movie, right?
Yeah.
The lore in that one doesn't count towards the lore in the other one, like in Man of Steel, because Man of Steel has made up its own lore. So to me, Destiny the game, Destiny 2 the game, they have their own lore that's separate from any of the stuff that is present outside of the game itself. If you can't experience it in the game, if you can't hear it in the game, if it's not there, it just doesn't. To me, it doesn't exist within that game. So that's what I mean by like
Ooh.
perhaps. Anyways, I'm not denying that there's lore out there. I'm saying that like to me within the game, lore in the story is if it's not there, if it's not in game, it's not happening.
And you're right that it's not in game. Um, but I don't know. It's just weird. When I hear the word lore, I'm not expecting to see all of it in the game. I'm expecting to maybe get it referenced or like man, I can't think of anything right off the top of my head, but when I hear lore, my game character interacts with something and maybe me as a fan of that type of game or maybe that specific game, I might think, "Oh, well, they just mentioned something I don't know about. Maybe I should, go and find out what this is about." Uh, but again, I don't expect lore to be in the game. I expect storytelling and narrative that the lore basically leads up to, because the game you're playing is the present. The lore is the history, no matter how long that history is. But again, it's our different definitions of what we think of the lore is or what the word lore means.
Right. That's totally fair.
Yeah.
To say like, hey, the lore is different from the storytelling, and if it's out there, it's out there. Therefore, it exists and it's fair. And I would say that I'm being a little unfair, and I think it's unfair or not. I think it's a good point to say that like ultimately like I prefer the thing, the medium to include that sort of lore within. It's like saying like imagine Star Wars, right? You're pretty
Hmm.
familiar with Star Wars and its
Yeah.
lore, right?
Yeah.
So imagine Star Wars. I believe in Star Wars they mentioned the Clone Wars in the first film. That is to say, the first
Yeah.
in A New Hope. I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
still
This is the
think
first film. Yeah, it is.
they mention it in there. So that's lore that is included in the film. Imagine that they never mentioned, the Clone Wars in that first movie, and then in some book they start mentioning the Clone Wars, and then they're saying that lore is part of
Yeah.
like Star Wars movies. And to me, I'd be like, no, that's something that was made up after the fact and is not part of like the lore that exists within
Well,
that film. It was never mentioned in the film. Like to me, it's unfair to say.
Hmm.
To me, it is as unfair to say that that's part of the lore as it is for, let's say, um, you know, J.K. Rowling to say like, oh yeah, Dumbledore was totally gay, and then sort of backtrack everything and say like all these people were this person was like maybe she was black. I never said she was white.
I think,
Like okay, that you know like it feels a little like unfair to me to try to
yeah,
backtrack it
but
after the fact.
but
Oh man, you touched on a nerve there for me because you mentioned it not being, as far as Star Wars is concerned, at least, because I love the expanded universe,
oh, me too.
and that touched upon characters that when Disney bought
They dropped it,
LucasArts,
cut
they
it.
said no, that's not canon, and I'm like, oh, that hurt my heart, because like Mara Jade
Oh
and
yeah.
Jade and Solo, and it's like, oh, dude, you could have made these into movies, which I think were much 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 better storytelling than what we ended up getting in these three new movies that came out.
So
So I don't know. I'm kind of biased. At least, I digress because we're talking about more specifically
yeah,
Halo,
the
and the
lore.
father of the lore. So I do apologize for going that route, but just
That's
kind of bringing it back. I
I
think
just
it's a good thing that Joseph Staten is coming back to kind of direct and lead the project for the campaign in regards to Halo Infinite. But go ahead, DJ.
I just want to say real quick, seeing he brought up Star Wars and the mention of the Clone Wars, that's a good example how lore, in my opinion, should be used. You have this movie, they mention the Clone Wars, but to the majority of the audience at the time, it's like, okay, whatever. We don't know what that is, but we don't care. We're watching the movie. But then later on, a new story is released that involves the Clone Wars. That's what I would love to see more in video games and just in storytelling in general. Yeah, just some offshoot mention. And then later on, it's like, oh shit, they mentioned this in that one movie. And now we get to see it, you know? That's lore being
Yeah.
used to tell a story.
That's lore being
Yeah,
used
that's awesome.
because,
Yeah.
and to me, that's lore that counts, right? Like it to me. So one of my, I mean, one of my favorite, all-time favorite movies is Blade Runner, and they say in Blade Runner that they never explore, they haven't explored so far, and probably never will. You know, but there's obviously things that are like said that are so cool. You know, they talk
Yeah.
about colonies, and they haven't explored those colonies. They've continued to mention those colonies, but they haven't explored those colonies. To me, that is such a fascinating thing that humans, especially rich humans, essentially started leaving Earth for the colonies. That these colonies are like rich and made to essentially um, made for the rich so that they can enjoy uh, and I guess to enjoy an area that isn't as polluted and as destroyed as our Earth is in Blade Runner, right? So like that is something that's really cool, and it's lore that exists within it, so that if they later choose to go to some of those colonies and do either a prequel or something like that to see where like the wars with the replicants started, like, to me all of that would count as part of the lore of Blade Runner. But if you were to suddenly throw in like, you know, there's some sort of King Arthur sword inside of Blade Runner. Like, what are you talking about? Like that stuff is new,
That's
and it's fine,
that's
but it's
making
not
lore to
part.
justify your story.
Right, exactly. So yeah, to me that, like you said, as you put it, it's good lore to include it in a movie. Maybe just almost just an offhanded comment, but you know, where at the time it was cool to think of, oh, what is the Clone Wars about? Like that sounds cool, but it's sort of a throwaway line, and it may be something they explore later. It may not be
Yeah.
something that can be that exists and is in the medium, as opposed to being something that's outside of it. Where I feel like too much of Destiny was like too much of Destiny existed outside of the game and
Oh, I
not
can agree
inside
with
of,
that. Yeah, I can
you
agree with
know.
that. Yeah.
So I think so. Yeah, where I think we're in line with that, and overall we would say like that. So you know, I mean, going back to Halo here, like there's a lot of great Halo lore. Like even for me, like I've said it. How many times have I said that I'm a Halo hater? Even for me, like I did play the entire first game, and I did like a lot of that lore, and a lot of the stuff that they sort of do there, which is essentially establishing this. You know, I've read like Forever War. I've read Ringworld. I've read a lot of these sort of sci-fi books that Halo is actually based on, including Starship Troopers, right?
Or
So like
inspired by?
having read, I haven't read anything outside of like these. I like to read like I don't know, like traditional novels, you know. So I haven't read like too many graphic novels, but um, so like these things that are based on that, like the existing lore within Halo is rich and wonderful and beautiful, which is why every time there's a new Halo game, I'm like, maybe they'll use it to amazing effect, and I'm waiting for that. And then I get something like Halo Infinite, which ultimately to me was like, well, okay, you're kind of going back to like some of the original stuff, but you're not really expanding upon the stuff that was there to begin with. That I wanted to see more of, and I was hoping that you'd give it some meaning, because ultimately, to me, you know, that's like the you know, the kicker, where it's like, okay, lore is great, but if that lore has no long term meaning to something, then it's like beyond that. It might be a cool factor, it might have a cool factor, but it's not sufficient to give it any meaning to me. And if it doesn't give it meaning, I don't value it as much. So having someone like Staten back on Halo means that someone that knows what they started with could give it that meaning back, and maybe give it meaning to Halo Infinite, which would be wonderful, because even if it's not coming this holiday season, it's something that, like, hey, if they take their time and maybe next year they bring it back and it has that story stuff and it has those cool lore stuff, and they explore that lore that has already existed and been there,
It
like
might.
that, and give it meaning, that might be fantastic and great.
Yeah. I mean,
Man, I just hate it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say I just hate that a certain individual is not coming this holiday weekend or this holiday season. But I am glad that they did bring along Joseph Staten. I was
Yeah.
gonna say Joseph Stalin. No, not Joseph Stalin. Joseph Staten.
Stalin.
to kind of work and lead the project for
Yeah.
the Halo campaign, because it's like you guys were saying and touched upon. It could only mean better things for this game to be delayed, so
Yeah.
they can work on things that may not have worked, um, for whatever reasons, right? That they've said they're delaying the game. So it is what it is,
Yeah.
and I look forward to what they have to bring and offer for Halo Infinite.
Yeah, I just want to say real quick, we can't really judge what kind of lore this game's going to bring yet because we haven't experienced it yet. And two, I wouldn't be surprised if they're trying to do like a little sneaky soft reboot. Like we're back on the ring world. We're not starting over from scratch, but we're starting over from scratch. You know what I'm saying? Kind of like
Yeah.
kind of sneaky way of starting things over, even that without actually starting things over. But that's just a theory, I guess I'll say. But yeah.
Interesting. What I was gonna say, like when I was hearing this whole thing about and how they kind of explain it, that it's kind of Halo Infinite is going to be like ever living, kind of like what Halo or not. I'm sorry, not Halo, but to me, I thought of things like Destiny. It's like, well, will I be able to create my own Master Chief, and that Master Chief kind of has his own story,
That would be
where it's
awesome.
kind of like Destiny, and that kind of got me excited. I was like, because I don't know how much longer you can continue the story of Master Chief. I know that there's an ending because in Halo Reach they talk about the end of the war, right? There's a certain year that all comes down and it ends, and humans eventually win. Halo Infinite, at least when they announced it and what they showed, was that the humans were losing or something. Like I can't really remember, but it's something to that effect where they're losing and you're like halfway, like in the middle of the game or whatever, where you find out that humanity is kind of almost lost. And and so to me it's like, how do you continue the story if this is your breadwinner? Will you make a Halo game that's similar to Destiny without saying that it's Destiny and you're following that step, where you can create your own character and kind of have him be the focus? I to me, honestly, I think that would be really cool. Or it's like, hey, I'm a Master Chief, yo. I'm gonna wreck stuff, you know?
Yeah. Or
I
you're a
wish
Spartan.
not
Yeah.
not to like say that you guys aren't Destiny gurus here. I do kind of wish that Andrew and Sam were here because they are kind of like as far as I know, the Destiny,
Oh
you
yeah.
know,
Oh
experts
yeah,
here.
I
And
would agree.
like I would love to explore the idea of like Halo being sort of pre-Destiny era, just and just sort of like Destiny just takes off where Halo ends, you know, like that the idea,
Ooh.
like with the idea of like at some point correct me if I'm wrong here, but in Destiny we meet some aliens and those aliens sort of give us certain powers, right?
So what happens is sometime in our own near future, the traveler shows up on Mars. So we send a mission to Mars. They kind of meet the traveler, and then for a few hundred years, the traveler inspires our technology and our way of life. Everything's great. They call it the Golden Age. But then the darkness comes and fucks everything up, which causes the collapse. When we start playing Destiny 1, the collapse has been going on for a while now, and we've just recently been resurrected to fight the darkness, to be very basic about it.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
Awesome.
I guess maybe it doesn't fit as much as I thought it would, but it could be made to fit. I think. I love
No,
conspiracy.
but yeah, I like the way you were thinking though. It's kind of like pre Halo, and all of a sudden, like thousands of years later, Destiny shows up, and it's kind of like how DJ was explaining it. It kind of does fit, kind of like if it were an alternate universe, or there's multiple universes, kind of like in like a DC type of movie where there's a different Batman on that other planet, and like Master Chief was a guardian in this other alternate universe or whatever, you know. So I could see that.
Maybe Master
Mm.
Chief becomes the first Guardian.
Yeah,
Or maybe the traveler is what stops the flood and the covenant and all that, or the technology we learn from the traveler, and then we experience our golden age, and then the darkness comes in and shows us that all that other shit wasn't nothing.
Yeah, that would be so
Right.
cool. But again, it's like I know I don't know enough. I never bothered with the lore because I figured if it's not in game, then it's not important enough for me to know it. You know, and that like
Mhm.
that's maybe a sticking point there. But I do appreciate it when games do include sort of the history of their world within the game and give you hints of like how that had a long term effect, and that stuff actually matters, not just in theory, like not just as like, oh yeah, this is why. It's sort of like the answer is like, why is it this way? Because this is why. Why is it this way? Because this is why. It's like you're telling me all this stuff, but you're not really showing me, or you're not making me essentially experience it. So that stuff weakens it for me, and
Mm.
I just think it's better when it's in game rather than sort of some explanation outside of the game, because it's hard.
What's your
Obviously,
name?
storytelling is hard, right? Like it's hard
Mhm.
to tell stories, and it's hard to tell good stories, and to include so many elements, it's like it could be downright sometimes impossible. Like you want to include all that stuff, but like the larger your story gets, the more you have to keep track of, and the harder it is to make it all fit in nicely. And you know that's sort of the gist of like the problem of writing big stories, right? Where you can't really include it all, so you have to make a choice. Obviously, in games, we have to make choices about what fits in and what doesn't. And I'd be curious to see what Joseph Staten will do with Halo now that he's back.
Yeah.
Yeah, same here.
Yes, sir. All right. So Gamescom was this week, and unfortunately, the three of us simply were not very enthusiastic about what we saw. Um, I'll ask my researcher to look up the games that were announced there, and he'll list them off in a second. But we're not really going to be talking about that, largely because again we weren't enthusiastic about what we saw. Perhaps you were. If you were, send us some questions that you might have, or reasons why we should explore that game, and we'll be glad to possibly talk about that in the next podcast. We want to be a little more interactive with our fans. If you guys have some ideas, post them in the comment section of YouTube, or send us a shout out or something. If you know us directly, send us a shout out and let us know, hey, talk about this game. I want to know more, or I want to know your thoughts, because we want to definitely engage you guys and see what you guys are interested in talking about.
Speaking of
So,
suggestions, something I wanted to ask on the podcast so that not only you guys can answer, but anyone who watches and is willing to comment can answer. I feel like there's always going to be times where maybe there's nothing really going on in the gaming world, nothing we're interested in. And today we kind of did it without even trying. But do we want to maybe every once in a while, like, branch off into something else? Like maybe I didn't play games this week because I was reading this new Batman comic book or something like that. And I'm asking because I want to hear your guys' answer, but also anybody who watches the podcast, I would like to hear those answers too. If we could ever talk about other gaming stuff when there's nothing going on.
I mean, I
All
would
right.
personally say that I'd love to talk about other things. I was talking to Rudy about Lakers, and just how excited I was to start watching games again. I miss games and stuff, and I'd love to be able to talk about them in a little more detail. I'd also love to talk about like books that I'm reading, or talk
Yeah.
about movies that I've been watching. I try to make it a point to watch like at least one new movie a week now, and which I haven't done in a couple of years now at least. So, but I'm really trying to stick to that and watch more movies, and I'd love to talk about those. If you guys are interested in that, let us know. And obviously our podcasters and our fellow council uh, is welcome to comment.
Okay, just real quick, some of the big headlining news for opening night for Gamescom was Dragon Age. They showed some footage, and BioWare is still working on it. No kind of release date on what's going on. The Sims meets Star Wars, where it's basically The Sims in Star Wars, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
But I
Star
mean,
Sims.
again, yeah, Star Sims, exactly.
Star Citizen?
No, Star
I'm
Wars. Yeah,
joking.
I was like, I don't know. Fall Guys, if you guys know that game, it's kind of popular. It's making some track. It looks kind of fun. I haven't played it myself. It looks kind of interesting. It's getting a season 2. They showed a trailer to Call of Duty Cold War, Black Ops Cold War, I should say. So that looked interesting. They gave a better look at Star Wars Squadron. They showed this incredible trailer called 12 Minutes. I don't know if you guys saw that. Willem Dafoe, Daisy Ridley, and James McAvoy. So if you haven't caught or seen it, take a look. They showed gameplay for Ratchet and Clank on the PS5, and then they showed a Medal of Honor in VR. And just DJ thoughts on that in a minute, because I know that you are a VR guy, and if you would be interested in playing something like that. Doom Eternal gets an expansion for those Doom guys.
Just jumping in here, I'm sorry because like I did want to talk about Doom Eternal, but we're kind of running short on time this week. But Doom Eternal,
we can definitely.
So that is one thing that I did want to talk about. Actually, I know I said the Gamescom was overall somewhat. We weren't enthused about it, but I am very enthusiastic about Doom Eternal and look forward to getting back in there.
Cool. And so also, Bridge Constructor meets The Walking Dead. I saw the trailer. I was like, okay, boring. Anyways, World of Warcraft next expansion. Since we don't have our resident World of Warcraft player, there you go, Joe. We're not going to talk about it, but it does launch in October, so
And it looks
something
cool
to look forward to. Yeah, it does. It looks really cool, and envious of those who can play it, because unlike me, I can't because I don't have a PC, but I want one. Anywho, what I was thinking is because this Gamescom is going on this weekend, Friday and Saturday. We could talk. Maybe we can talk about it next week on our next podcast, in regards as to what Gamescom does show. Maybe there are some surprises that we have yet to see. I'm sure Jeff has something for us in the world premiere, in that world premiere voice there. I'm sorry, I'm not a very good voice actor, but there you go. That was my attempt.
world premiere.
Very cool.
All right, well, that brings us to the end of our podcast number 6. We're glad that you guys were able to tune in, and please, subscribe, hit that like, and look forward to our next podcast next week. And I'd like to thank DJ and AJ for joining us. Thanks, guys.
Oh yeah, man, love to do it.
Catch you next time.
See you guys.
Bye.